to work with families with children with disabilities on the border. So it wasn't really army work, it was another option that you have
Mm-hmm.
to do civil work.
Uh-huh.
But I come from a combat family, so my father has been in combat in multiple wars. My brother has been a combat vet, so
Mm.
very close to my heart. I work with veterans who come back from Afghanistan and Iraq every day. I did over 250 evaluations in the last 3 years of those veterans. And when we look at PTSD and brain damage from blasts and so forth, so I'm quite familiar with that picture. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's a very grim. The picture of war is a grim picture.
It is.
There's
It
no
is.
way about it. There's no.
No, no, there's no way. Now you went over to Tel Aviv with your family. You have 3 little kids. Your husband, the
Yeah.
rabbi, and you went over there for 2 weeks to visit your family over there.
Yeah, I went to actually to lecture in the international conference. 2 of the Veterans Affairs studies that I conduct were accepted discussing issues of veterans. And so the conference was in Jerusalem. And along with that, I went to visit my family and give my kids the opportunity to see their grandparents and so forth and see the land. Israel is quite beautiful, and it's my home base for so many years.
How long have you lived in America?
15 years. So I moved out here when I was 20. Now you know my age, and don't tell anyone. I'm in denial. But so I've moved out here at 20, which is not fully developed adult, but I've had a good chunk of my life growing up in Israel, and it's quite interesting because I'm not all Israeli, and really I'm not all American. I'm sort of a hybrid, as so
Yeah.
many individuals are in this amazing country. And it was interesting though, because I grew up in bunkers. During the Gulf War, I was a teen, and my dad was very patriotic, and I remember being in the bunker with gas masks on my face and having statements everywhere in the bunker saying, we will prevail, we will survive. My dad had all these really good coping skills, and he was a top lieutenant, and definitely has a lot of that behavior with him. And which I'm very thankful of. So actually, I have quite thrilling, but some sweet memories of being loved like that. But what's so peculiar is now being a mom and a psychologist, and have been working with vets coming back from war for a few years. Going back now to a reality of war with my kids who are full-blown
Yeah.
Americans. They really are not familiar,
What are their
thankfully.
ages?
Almost 8, 5, and 3.
Wow.
Quite young.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, it was an exhausting trip, as anyone knows, with little kids.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we had all these peculiar situations. For example, when we were in Jerusalem, the siren went off, and a lot of people don't know, but the siren is going off every few seconds, and the radio
Wow.
is on, and every few seconds you hear the siren go on, and it's a different area of the country, and it always gets to you as well. So it's that constant threat and feeling that in the next couple of seconds rockets will come near me. So it's not as if you have like a few hours and you're totally cut off of that. And then when the siren goes on, you have a minute and 30 seconds, technically a little less by the time you figure out what you're doing, to find a bunker.
Now, how often? I mean, how are they situated? The bunkers on every street,
So
or
it's tricky, no, because not every home has a bunker.
mm-hmm.
Not everyone has the ability to build it or can afford it, and people have to live their life. You can't stop, and
Right.
because in Israel, that's your existence. So if you decided, let's say, I'm gonna not do anything until it's over, then you're not gonna do anything your whole life, because that's the existence there. So people have learned to live with it. So people
How
drive.
do we
and-
live? How can you live
Yeah.
with that kind of thing? We have no concept in this country of how lucky and how very, very grateful we should all be living in this country the way we have. I mean, we have our problems. There's no question about that.
There's
We do.
problems and there's problems.
Yeah,
I
but it's not-
fully agree with you. It
Yeah.
is. It's so mind-boggling to me that when there's a very major difference between problems of politics to problems of life and death. When your
Yeah.
life is under threat, everything else is. It's sort of like you have cancer, but you're gonna start dealing with your dry skin.
Yeah.
It's just irrelevant.
Yeah.
You got to deal with the cancer. So that's what Israel has to deal with every day. And I really believe that Israel has very bad rap. Like, for example, Israel just gave 65,000 units of help with medications and food to the to the Gaza Strip to make sure that people are doing okay. No one talks about it.
No.
I found it in one little note thing that I get in newspapers that I get directly coming from Israel and from other sources.
I think in the last few days you
Why
may
no
be
one
able
is covering it?
may be able to think, you may have heard this, but didn't the president's daughter need medical help from Palestine and was brought over to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or somewhere
Yeah,
to be taken care of?
yeah, but that's routine in Israel. In fact, it's Israel gives a 24-hour notice before they bomb a building. What country that decides to protect itself and goes to? I mean, I don't think the United States does that. I may
No,
be
we
wrong.
don't- I don't think so.
But Israel gives a 24-hour notice to make sure families and kids have the option to escape and go hide somewhere. That is very humanitarian. And look, if Israel doesn't do anything, it's going to be wiped off the map.
Yeah.
That's the reality. The tunnels issue, one of the reasons why the Hamas is so out there now protesting, there's hundreds of those tunnels. And
What tunnels? What are we? What is
so
that?
so th- there's another thing that's
Is
not
that-
fully covered. The Hamas has built for the last few years hundreds of underground tunnels that are full of weapons and explosives, and those reach all the way into the Israeli area. So it goes under the border all the way to the Israeli area, and this is where they also multiple times infiltrated the land and sent in units, terrorist units. And so Israel now is busy in the last week, and this is one of the reasons why Israel has now military casualties. It's no longer on air, as we actually have to go down. Israeli soldiers have to go down to the ground and clear out those tunnels. That's what they're doing right now. They thought it was only a few of them. There's hundreds of them, and they are major and big, and there are a net of them. And so this is an issue of existence.
So what is the
it's just
conflict? What
Oh gosh.
what is if you can? I don't think I've ever known. Is it purely a religious ideological problem, or is it? I don't know. I have no idea. So if you can help us understand.
It's the gray zone. Nothing in life is clear cut. But I will say that systematically, leaders of Palestinian leaders and Arab leaders keep the population of Gaza Strip poor, uneducated, developed in them forced hatred and
We have that here.
misunderstanding.
We have that here.
Well, I'm sure. And there's a lot of areas
Yeah.
in the world where people,
Yeah.
when you psychologically, when you keep someone uneducated, poor, dependent on you, and feed them with wrong information,
Yeah.
they're going to make the wrong decisions. They're going to react in the wrong way. When they're being fed that if they kill themselves, they're going to get virgins up in heaven, and they're led to believe that from a young age, that violence will result, that severe violence and murdering of people will result in those kind of benefits. What do you expect? This is brainwash, full blown. When you interview a mother, when you look at the media, when they're interviewing a mother of a terrorist, do you know what she commonly says? She says, "I wish my other 9 boys will do the same." This is what we're battling. This is something very deep.
Yeah.
There were democratic elections in Gaza, and so the world was hopeful that, wow, now there's going to be democracy in Gaza, and they're going to choose better leaders, and they're going to develop. Who did they choose in a democratic
The
election?
Hamas.
The Hamas. This is what we're dealing with. A lot of
That's
ideology.
what it is here. I'm telling you. They keep the South so poor and so illiterate. Our whole southern part of the United States, from Texas over to Florida, and the Carolinas, they keep them so stupid, so illiterate, because they change the textbooks, they keep them in the churches, and they preach fear to them all the time from a very young age.
This is exactly what the Hamas does. It changes the books. It forces a certain system in the schools that is a propaganda against the United States and Western civilization in general. By the way, it's not just Israel. It's not just the United States. It is now all over Europe. And this kind of, we cannot endorse that. No matter what people's beliefs are, religious beliefs, they should be able to practice it in freedom, as long as they don't hurt other people.
That's right.
This issue where we have to destroy and wipe out a certain
I know.
race from the world, it
Yeah.
should be unacceptable at this point. And yet again, but it's being done in a very the Hamas is doing it in a very bright, subtle, manipulative way. So they always make sure that the media takes footage that shows children get hurt. But what are these children doing near those rockets to begin
Yeah.
with? And now on YouTube, you're starting to see the videos of how these kids are being placed strategically near rocket shooting. If I'm a mom and I love my child, that's the last thing I'm going to do.
But they've got these mothers brainwashed too.
Oh yeah, because they're
Through their
proud of that.
religion, and and they had those boys that were walking on the beach. It was on Facebook the other day and on the news a lot, that got injured. I don't know if any of them died, but they did get injured, and it was that's what the world is seeing. That's what is being put out there.
There was another video. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but you see a preacher, a religious preacher, standing near a group of children with them while the rocket is right near them, being shot right out. And later they were injured apparently because they were so close to it. But the whole time the preacher is just filling them up with words of hatred and violence. I was talking on my show for a couple of weeks about aggression and how violence breeds violence. It is very attractive to our brain. It is very fundamental to our existence to be aggressive and very quickly to become predators. We can be predators.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we are. And so if we don't put a stop to it cognitively, we very quickly go towards it. That's why people love movies that have violence in them. Secretly inside, we all have a part of us that's at least fascinated with violence, and this is a part of us that's attracted to violence. Because we are supposed to be higher beings, we should put a check on that.
Yeah.
We should. But now in Germany a few days ago, people were rioting in the streets yelling, "Jews to the gas chambers."
I know. I read
It
that.
hasn't even been 100 years.
Yeah.
It hasn't even been 100 years.
And we thought that's one of the things, that and the Indians being displaced and the Jews being gassed. Those are the things that I taught my children from the time they were very young, that we can never allow again in our lifetimes. But look at what's going on. It's just happening continually. Maybe they're not rounding people up on trains, but they're killing them in the name of Allah, in the name of Muhammad, in the name of whatever God that they worship. And it just seems like, what can we do?
I truly hope that I'm wrong, but my internal feeling is that we are going into a new era and things are going to get worse. That this is just the beginning. If you look historically, every 100 to 150 years, the world goes into upheaval and into war. We can't help it. And it always is coinciding with economic fall.
Yeah.
Or
I've been
economic
reading
decline.
Yeah, I've been seeing that.
We have this now. We have a shift of empires. We have strengthening of China. We have weakening of the American dollar. You do see dynamics in the world that make me very concerned. And you got to think about other rights of people. So we don't talk about the good things that Israel does. We don't talk about the countless amount of medical innovations that come from Israel. The fact that Israel is the first country to always send an airplane with aid to every country in the world that has a problem, including Muslim countries. And Israel is Israel is the size of New Jersey. People don't know that. It's a tiny little thing. And it doesn't have that much money. Israel is always the first one to send aid. We don't talk about veto centers. Israel has a system called veto, where women come into, Arab women and Palestinian women can escape their abusive husbands with their children and receive full financial support and protection in those centers in Israel.
Wow.
We don't talk about that. We only talk about the fact that Israel has to use a military action when it's being threatened, when it's under attack. So it's a concern that I have, that there's no fair representation, there's no fair discussion, that money that's being sent to the Palestinian people does not go to them? Why is it not going to give them proper education? Why isn't the money being used to build proper infrastructure and give them shoes and books and blankets and proper housing?
Yeah.
The money goes to buy guns. We give it to the wrong people. And so and all this brainwash is not making things better. So good people have to do something good and speak up. Otherwise we allow evil to thrive, and
That's how come we had the Holocaust. Good people did not speak up, including America, I will add, because we knew what was going on. That's when I found that out as I grew up, and I found that out, I was really repulsed and repelled by the fact that it took. And then you find out that Pearl Harbor Roosevelt knew about Pearl Harbor, just like Bush knew about the 9/11, and they let it happen in order to get us into a war. Because you put anybody in a war, everybody's all gung ho and patriotic, but and then they lied us, and whatever we were already feeling, they lied us into the rest of it to go and invade Iraq, of all places, when it was really Saudi Arabians who implemented 9/11.
War is an ugly thing.
It is.
War is an ugly thing. And the psychology, as coming from the psych world and the neuropsych world, I always try to look to see what happens to the new generation, because these kids are going to be the future, and we're going to age and hopefully not be in diapers, but who knows.
I don't hold a lot of hope for myself.
Well, if it comes to that, I'm running on the beach, and that's it, free. But the thing is, I'm thinking about those children on both ends. These kids are being raised in trauma, under trauma, under the threat that every day now they can die. They can be killed. For Israeli children, it's in some ways it's frightening to know that they can go to a pizzeria and be bombed. See, what the Israelis have to deal with is, I remember when I lived in Jerusalem and moms take their kids to the pizza place and the kids don't come back with limbs. The war was not against the military forces. The war is against civilians, against kids. I remember as a teen in Tel Aviv, and one of the bombs went off, and I went to the street to pick up body parts. That is not something anyone should ever experience. But when you see that, everything else becomes much smaller. And I always wonder about, I am so thankful for this country that gives people freedom. In this country we give people freedom, and freedom to speak even if we don't like it, and so forth. And we have to appreciate that so much. We don't have to agree. We don't even have to like each other, but you can be my neighbor and I can be yours. We don't think.
Although I think I would look into my neighbors. You know me, people. I would look in to see who's Republican and who's Democrat on the street. Go ahead, Johnny.
Right, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's. We have to appreciate that in this country. We really do.
And we're losing a lot of it by giving up our freedoms to people who expound all these, radical ideas. Like religion seems to have become like this major overreaching arm that is yet again, I haven't felt it as much as I do now in our country, where they are lying, and I've always thought that organized religion in certain ways was hypocritical. I've always felt that way because I grew up in the Baptist and then the Church of Christ, and I saw all these people doing all the things that we weren't really supposed to do, that we were told not to do, but yet they did it, and I thought, well, how can they be Christians? And now I see Christians acting like the Ku Klux Klan, ready to string people up because they have different ideas. Nobody wants to chat. Nobody wants to talk. And anyway,
and
go
religion
ahead.
has bad rap, being a rabbi's wife. And, we are very modern and very involved, and we have various kinds of friends. And to me, it's live and let live. is the beauty of the difference. I like the fact that people are different from each other. I like the fact that people have different beliefs. I think that also, as I said, religion has bad rap when bad people choose to abuse religion
That's
in the
right.
name of a false messiah because of their personal psychopathic tendencies. You see, there's something, when you look in psychology, by the way, one of the characteristics in diagnosis of a psychopath is superficially charming. If, in fact, there is a big study that was done that was striking, that showed that antisocials, criminals, have in general nicer faces, nicer looking faces than people who are not. Did you know
Wow,
that?
no.
They have beautiful facial features, and so it makes them more attractive to people, and people are more likely to believe them and follow them because simply they're attractive. And so they use that and they utilize that to deceive people. And those kind of people seek power. And religion, given the fact that people are sensitive to the concept of the existence of God and coming for support, religion is a very dangerous breathing room for those individuals to come in. It's just like politics. It's the same thing.
It is.
Okay,
Absolutely.
any place of leadership is going to attract true leaders and false messiahs, always. And to me, I always teach my kids, I said, I don't care if somebody has a long beard and look like a real, religious hero. You do not know what's inside of that person. You always have to judge for yourself. Do I think this person is a true leader or not? Do I think they seek good or not? And I also think that people shouldn't be persecuted for being religious. I mean,
Oh, no, absolutely not.
I remember multiple times. I mean, I've been in academia since I moved to the U.S. 15 years. And I remember many times being pointed at and saying, well, what do you think about that, you God believer? And every time I would say, well, what am I representing, God right now? It's amazing how many times I was pointed at and saying, well, you God believer,
Well, what's the alternative to being a God believer?
Well, if maybe you're not a God believer, but even if you are
I
a
mean,
God believer, that doesn't mean you have all the answers. That doesn't mean you
No.
care about all the answers.
Right.
And definitely, you're not about to spend your life representing God necessarily.
Right.
You're gonna do what you're gonna do.
I mean, I think the whole thing about religion to me is my relationship with whomever I decide that is my higher power. I mean, I don't even call him anything. It's just the higher power. And my particular religion talks in terms of there are so many paths on that mountain that lead to the higher power. And we can call him all different things, but we all want the same thing for us personally. We want to feel comfortable. We want to feel safe. We want to feel like, if whatever is on the other side, when we transition to that next plateau, that next plane, we want to know that we won't be scared.
Right.
We want some kind of comfort.
And people call it different things
Exactly.
and connect in different ways.
Right.
It's easier for me because in Judaism, you're not allowed
Not allowed to
to do
proselytize.
missionary work.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to and allowed to try to convert people or convince people. In fact, according to traditional Kabbalah, the old ways, the world was created with different cultures and different people connecting to belief system per the need of that population and that culture. So the discussions were like different regions of the world would practice things differently per their interest and need. So that makes it so much easier when you see it that way. You can look at the world and say,
Yeah.
these people practice that and those people practice this
Yeah.
way, and you can appreciate the differences and enjoy the differences rather than having to impose yourself on other people, which is a real concern. It really is. But unfortunately, not every religion sees it this way.
So many do not. And it's these old religions that are trying to hang on to something that that is so foreign to me, that is foreign to people who have been practicing those religions over many decades, that they can't quite seem to understand that it's okay to be born as a homosexual person and still be given the respect and the love that they deserve, and that people who don't just choose that particular lifestyle. It just happens to be that they're born that way, and they have been thousands and thousands of years before Christ, after Christ. There have been homosexuals.
Oh, of course, it's discussed in length in the Gemara and the Talmud, in the old Jewish books. It discusses in length the existence of homosexuals. It does not endorse public behavior of homosexuals, but it does not endorse any public sexual behavior in general.
Right.
I don't care if a person is gay or not. I wouldn't want to see them engage in intimate activity in front of me or my children.
Right.
Not the time to show that to them. So developmentally, but also a lot of people don't know that according to Torah, or the Old Testament, and in Judaism, a gay person is allowed and supposed to be a cantor in the synagogue. They are invited to pray and be one of. There's essentially no rights are being taken from them. There is only one thing they cannot do, but then a bunch of other people can't do it, and that's to be the highest priest. But then you also can't be divorced or having past criminal behavior or a lot of other things, because they're trying to keep the high priest in a certain condition. But the fact that we're not allowed to ostracize the person. We're not allowed to, you know what I mean? People have their own. It's never been the argument whether, it's the same thing with evolution. Judaism discusses evolution over 1,000 years ago, and people don't know that. But you have to read the books. A lot of people don't read the material and make comments. It's the same thing in medicine. It's the same thing in psychology. It's somebody reads 3 pages and they become an expert. And they says, the most abused, and I told my husband, I said, we are doomed, you and I, because we are in the professions that everybody has millions of opinions. If you're in psychology or religion, right? Everybody knows better than you do, and everybody will get into arguments with. So I always laugh, because we are totally doomed in what we chose to do, what we're meant to do, I think. But it's interesting because it's though close to the heart. It's close to the heart. So we have to look at it in a positive way at the end of the day.
I agree. I really do. I think that we've been talking about some very heavy things tonight, from pooping to
HIV,
to war, to
war.
HIV, to all this stuff. And we need to bring it down every now and then and talk about stuff that's really important. And I think these particular subjects are. You get your fun. Emerson and Dell, they give you those laughs. So does Tony, and
you do too.
Sometimes I do too. Sometimes,
It's called run and return.
Yeah.
When I come home and I have one kid puking on me and the other kid pulling my hair, and then there's like an egg flying across the room. Trust me, I'm not Dr. D anymore. I'm like this mom who's like, her eyes are crossed. And I tell my husband, totally humble, because it's that moment where, they bring you down.
Oh,
and they show you, and in a sweet way I'm saying that. But it's the run and return.
Yeah.
You run heavy, and then you got to return and be light.
Well, we're going to have to run now and say goodnight. John Williams,
really
again, thank you very much for all that you do for
pleasure.
for me
Thank
and
you.
for the show and for this whole station.
Thank you.
And Dr. D, when you first came here, I just fell in love with you. I just thought you were so incredibly talented.
Feeling mutual.
Thank you, darling. And I wasn't looking for that.
And she does talk about you a lot after the show. I mean, it's not just during the show.
I listen to your
she
show.
does. She talks about you. She references.
I listen to your show because what we didn't get into tonight is this incredible training and teaching that she can do for us about video games and the addiction of video games. So if you have children, teenagers, young kids, I'm only talking because my grandson, who's 6, would like to be immersed in video games, but after listening to Dr. D on her show, if you want to know about what she talks about, you should go on the archives for what's the name of your show?
The Dr. D Show.
Oh,
Clear cut.
very hard. It's very hard.
We kept it simple.
Dr. D, the Dr. D Show, and in the archives, and I'm sure that there's a notation there in the archives about what she was talking about. It's been about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago that you talked about that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of episodes. The latest episode has an interview with the director of the film that he has that addiction. He has had
Oh, right.
that
That was
addiction to
him.
World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
That was just the
That was
latest
just the-
episode last
yeah.
Tuesday.
But then there
But then
was
we have a few
another one
weeks
where you
ago.
really talked about how the brain works.
Right, how it
and
changes
what
brain.
causes all that.
Yep.
So, I could have been, might have been. I always thought, well, medicine is so intriguing to me. I took physiology. I know I'm running, but anyway, I took physiology when I was in high school, and I loved that class. I just thought it was the most interesting thing, and I always liked biology and science. And my daughter's a
Daughter's
doctor.
a doctor. I was
Yeah.
going to say,
And
follows in the family.
my other
See?
daughter's in psychology.
Mhm.
Oh my God!
There you go.
You're
I'm
all
so
covered.
proud. I'm so proud.
Twins.
You
Yes,
should be.
so proud.
Amazing.
Anyway, thank you all very much for listening to me tonight
you
and
for
to
having me on
listening
the
to my.
show.
Well, you're
It
welcome.
was very informative.
Uh,
Really good.
You'll come back again.
Mhm.
We sort of in the beginning thought, well, once a month or once every couple of months, and I think we're going to try to
love
hold
to.
of that
Mm-hmm.
because she's real smart, and we can talk about different topics of things with her. So we'll see you next Wednesday. I have no idea who's going to be on yet, but you'll find out as soon as I know.
And it will be fun.
Yeah, it will
Yeah.
be fun. Thank you all for tuning in. I love you, and see you next Tuesday.